Hello, this is Jam Master Daniel 96, and today I am going to be explaining the old Canon tier system, and it's a section on Wikipedia I'll be going off of, and this is kind of well known to a lot of hardcore Star Wars fans, and fans who read the expanding universe would know about this, about the old Canon hierarchy system. And the section says Canon in the Holocron continuity database, and so I'm going to read it and stuff and then go over all the different things, what was considered in each canon tier, and let's begin. And then there's a little story about it, and here we go. In 2000, Lucas Licensing appointed Leland Chee to create a continuity tracking database referred to as the Holocron Continuity Database. The Holocron followed the canon policy that had been in effect for years, but the capabilities of database software allowed each element of a story rather than the stories as a whole to be classified. The Holocron database included a field for a single letter, G, T, C, S, N, or D, representing the level of content of canonicity of that element. These letters were since informally applied to the levels of canon themselves: G canon, T canon, C canon, S canon, N canon, and D canon. Part of his work with the Holocron was responsible for the creation of this classification system, and he spent early stages developing and refining it. It was discontinued with the April 2014 reboot, and pretty much with nowadays, with the Disney kind of era of Star Wars, they just have canon and legends. But back in the day, before Disney bought, like when George Lucas owned the company, he had G canon, T canon, C canon, S canon, N canon. The D canon stood for the Star Wars Detour show that was going to be done with Seth Green, which was one of the things that was kind of we would have got if, like that was kind of the things that got canceled, that got pushed off to the side by Disney when they wanted to take their reign with Star Wars. That was kind of one of the things Lucas had in mind before selling the company, and that's just a fun fact right there. And then the G, T, C, and S canon form the overall Star Wars continuity. Ascending level typically overrode the lower ones, and this is a pretty well-known one. For example, the Boba Fett Jasta Mareel thing, for an example, like books before Attack of the Clones, like we all thought Boba Fett's real name was Jasta Mareel, and then we thought he came from the planet Concord Dawn. But fast forward to Attack of the Clones, when that comes out in 2002, George Lucas comes in and overwrites to say that in his mind that Boba Fett was a clone from Jango Fett, and then Leland Chee and all his crew had to come up with a solution to make sure how could the thing they depicted with Boba Fett in the expanded universe could fit in line what George Lucas presented in Attack of the Clones. Well, they came with a solution that Boba Fett took on the name Jasta Mareel as an alias, and then he exiled to Concord Dawn, and then they make Jasta Mareel another character, which was a father figure to Jango Fett, and then they made it all fit together. And so that's kind of a thing. And then, which was G canon, which was George Lucas canon, which was the first 6 movies, like the prequel trilogy and the original trilogy, and any statements by George Lucas. And then you had included stuff like the movie novelizations, the reference books, and other sources were also G-canon, though anything created by the authors of those sources was C-canon. When the films were changed to the newest editions, which is like the special editions, those would take precedence over the older ones. For an example, like with the special editions, like for example, like Han, with the Han shooting first and the Greedo shooting first, they would have made. So right now, that Greedo shooting first takes precedence over Han shooting first in the original theatrical version, and also deleted scenes were also considered G-canon when they didn't conflict with the movie. And moving on to the second highest tier was T-canon, which was television canon. And this one was the 2008 Clone Wars series and the movie were considered T-canon, and it also would have included the cancelled Star Wars Underworld live-action show that was planned by George Lucas for a while and planned before the Disney sale, so that would have been considered T-canon for television canon. And then there was C-canon, which stood for continuity canon, which was where a lot of the EU books and comics, the games, the cartoons, and non-theatrical films and more. Games were a special case, as generally only the stories were C-canon, and stuff like the way you play the game wouldn't be canon, and all the alternate endings would be non-canon. And there was like stuff from that would be from the expanded universe that would get incorporated into the movies, like in the prequels, like that would make the G canon status, like the planet Coruscant, the character Ayla Secura. Quinlan Voss is based off a background character in The Phantom Menace, and then he's referenced in Revenge of the Sith. Then you have the Outrider, which appeared in the New Hope Special Edition. Then you have the Action 4 transports, and also a fun fact, the double-bladed lightsaber was actually invented before Darth Maul invented, which was in the Tales of the Jedi comics by X.R. Kuhn. And then S-canon was secondary canon. The materials were available to be used or ignored as needed by authors. This was the older works where the original Marvel comics were that predated consistent effort to maintain continuity. It also contained certain elements of a few otherwise end-canon stories and other things that may not just fit right. Many formerly S-canon elements were elevated to C-canon through their inclusion in more recent works by continuity-minded authors, while many other older works, such as the Han Solo Adventures, were accounted for in continuity from the start despite their age, and thus were always C-canon. So that's what S-canon was, and I always think of this more like kind of the gray area of canon, because this is more like, because you'd have a lot of the stuff before 1991, like the old Marvel comics and all that, so I always, in my opinion, consider S-canon that gray area of canon. And then they have a thing called, which I mentioned about the D-canon, which really this one never came to be, which was Detours, and that was, I did explain it, was that canceled Seth Green Star Wars comedy show, animated show, which was almost like they had a trailer and stuff. I mean, this was one of the things we were like anticipating to get like before Disney bought Star Wars, and then I don't know why like Disney didn't bother to release it or something, like something along the lines there. And And then there was End Canon, which was all the what if stories, which was like all the Infinities stuff, like what else stuff with Infinities label, and anything else directly, and in recon like stuff that was contradicted by the stuff that was on the higher levels from and ended up there. End Canon was the only thing that was considered non-canon by Lucasfilm, and that was like information cut from canon, deleted scenes, or cancelled Star Wars works fell into the category as well unless another canonical work referenced it and it was declared canon. Excuse me there. And then there are some quotes from about it, and then there's one on August 4th, 2004, and Leland G is asked if asked if the G canon and C levels were separate and independent canon, Leland G responded by stating that both were part of a single canon. There is one overall continuity, which they always did, is try to make it one overall continuity. And then he also answered on December 7th, 2005, and he commented on the holocron comes into play for anything official being developed for books, games, websites, and merchandise. For anything beyond that, it's simply a reference tool, which pretty much is like a reference tool to keep track of all the continuity of things. And then there was a thing on a post on December 6, 2006, Chi contradicted his original statement regarding the canonicity of the holocron and how it applied to the Star Wars universe. The only relevant official continuities are the current versions of the films alone, and combined current version of the films along with whatever else we've got in the holocron. You're never going to know what George's view of the universe beyond the films at any given time. It's constantly evolving, which he could also be mean with, when how those special edition changes, like on that kind of stuff, like, because Lucas did have the stuff about the, like when he had after 97, he had in 04, and then the 2011 Blu-rays. Then there was another post made. Anything in the current version of the films is irrelevant to film-only continuity. And then another statement, he says, confirms of the priority current version of the films over the original versions, as well as the existence of two separate continuities, the film-only continuity maintained and followed by George Lucas himself, and the film plus EU continuity that is used for licensed products, and subsequent questioning over which continuity was more official revealed that Mr. Chi favored film plus EU continuity, but in the end it was up to the individual fan. And then he says, "You are asking the keeper of the holocron, so of course I'm going to be a bit biased. The reality is that a huge number of people who have seen all 6 Star Wars films have never played a game, visited a Star Wars website, watched a Star Wars television program, read a publication, or purchased a Star Wars action figure or collectible. It would be a great disturbance to discount these people as fans." So that's just a quote he has, and so those are things on the canon hierarchy pre-Disney. And pretty much I'm going to link this thing down below, and I'm going to explain pretty much what the Disney era as we know now. Pretty much now we have canon, which people will say canon, new canon, Disney canon, story group canon, current canon, whatever you call it. That is canon. What is the canon? And then they rebranded the EU as Legends for the reboot. So pretty much nowadays you have canon and Legends, and it's all on one tier. So it's pretty much with the new canon, it's all on one tier. All they did was pretty much push C, S, and N canon off to the side, and then pretty much they took G and T canon, pretty much like Nathan Butler made a good analogy. They copy and pasted the first 6 movies and the Clone Wars movie and show and put it in a Word document, like put it in a new blank Word document, and then we would get stuff from 2014 and beyond with. So you would have pretty much they merged also G and T canon as well to create the new canon, and then you would have books like starting with A New Dawn, and then we also had Darth Maul, Son of Dathomir, which you could say is also part of Legends because the 2008 Clone Wars show is also part of Legends as well, and that's pretty much the only Dark Horse comic they're considering as canon by the Lucasfilm Story Group, Darth Maul, Son of Dathomir, and then so you can kind of say that's the first new canon comic, and then in 2015 Marvel got the rights again, so as we know as now, those comics are part of the new Star Wars canon driven by the Lucasfilm Story Group, and then you had the novel starting with A New Dawn in 2014 and so on. As we know now, the novels being published now driven by the Lucasfilm Story Group are considered canon, part of the new Star Wars canon, and then they rebranded and the original Star Wars Expanded Universe and put the Legends label on different books. As you can see, let me just grab a book right here. As they did it in 2014, is rebrand that as Star Wars Legends, like you can call it. Some people say the Star Wars Expanded Universe, Star Wars Legends, the original Star Wars Expanded Universe, the old canon. Like people always have a different name for that, and then same with the new canon. They'll say canon, new canon, Disney canon, current canon, story group canon. I mean, everyone has their kind of different saying, or they'll just say canon and Legends. I mean, it doesn't really matter what you call it. I mean, it's still the same thing. And also, I will link the thing on Wikipedia down below, and then I will also link like Matt Wilkins talking about this, a video of his down below, and I'll also link a video of Nathan Butler down below, which I'll also link their channels because they're pretty informative channels to check out. And that's all I gotta say. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel and like this video and all that. And I'll catch you guys next time. And sorry I made this video a little longer than I intended to. And I'll catch you guys next time. Bye.